Okay, welcome everyone to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Now, time management. I mean, if you're listening, chances are you've probably bumped into a fair bit of advice on this already.
Oh, for sure. Books, articles, apps.
The whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
So you might be thinking, what's different about this deep dive? What are we going to uncover?
That's a really good question. We're not just repeating the same old stuff. We looked at Tracy Weaver's effective time management and PN. Well, our mission here is really to pull out the things you can actually use.
Exactly. Insights that genuinely help you get a grip on your time, boost productivity, but without, making you feel even more swamped.
Right. And this source, it's an ebook, very much personal development style, focused on practical stuff Weaver found works.
Yeah, and one of the first things that really jumped out, I think, is how he redefines time itself.
Yeah.
It's not just the clock on the wall.
He makes this distinction between, like, standard clock time, 24 hours, 60 minutes, all that.
Which we all get the same amount of.
Exactly. And then what he calls actual time, your sort of lived experience of it.
Okay, explain that a bit more.
Well, think about it. 2 hours doing something really tedious can feel like forever, right?
That's right.
But then an afternoon doing something you love just flies by. Weaver's argument is that focusing on this actual experience time is, well, fundamental. It's the real starting point.
So it's about the quality of the time, not just the quantity. Making sure how you feel about the time matches what you value.
Precisely. It suggests maybe feeling time poor isn't just about the clock, but maybe about how you're investing those moments. Are they aligned with what matters?
Okay, so getting mindful about time. And how does he suggest we start? There's an exercise, right?
Yeah, a pretty straightforward one, but surprisingly powerful. He suggests tracking your time for a whole week.
In detail.
Yeah, in 10-minute blocks, just jotting down what you're doing.
Wow, okay.
Huh?
That sounds intensive.
It can be, but the payoff is awareness. You suddenly see where all those little minutes go, the quick social media check that stretches out, the slightly too long coffee break.
The interruptions you didn't even register.
Exactly. You identify what he calls the time suckers. It's like you wouldn't try to budget without knowing where your money goes first, right?
No.
Same idea. You need that baseline.
Makes sense. Understand the landscape before you try to change it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got this awareness. What's next? He talks about being proactive.
Yes, shifting from reactive to proactive. And a key part of this, which really stood out, is scheduling appointments with yourself.
For your own important tasks.
Exactly. And treating them with the same, seriousness as
Yeah.
a meeting with your boss or a client. It's a commitment.
I like that. Giving your own priorities the weight they deserve.
And he backs it up, apparently, if you write down a specific time and date for a task, you're something like 75% more likely to actually do it.
75%. Wow. Just by scheduling it.
Yeah, it locks it in mentally, makes it real.
Okay, so track the time, schedule the important stuff like appointments. Now, how do we make the most of that scheduled time? Planning comes in here, doesn't it?
Absolutely. He's big on planning, suggests taking, just say, the first 15 minutes of your day, or you could even do it the night before.
15 minutes. Doesn't sound like much.
But here's the kicker. He quotes this principle. 1 minute of planning saves 10 minutes in execution.
Okay. So 15 minutes of planning saves 150 minutes. 2.5 hours.
That's the potential he highlights, yeah.
Yeah.
It's about being intentional, having a roadmap for that time you've scheduled instead of just, winging it.
Right, avoiding that feeling of, okay, I have an hour, now what? Which leads nicely into another big-time sink, meetings.
Meetings, yes. He has a pretty direct approach for making them more efficient.
Which is?
Clarify the desired outcome before the meeting, or right at the very start. Like, what do we need to decide or achieve by the end of this?
So simple, but I bet it rarely happens.
Often doesn't. But asking that question keeps things focused. It helps cut out the tangents, the discussions that aren't really relevant to the goal, respects everyone's time.
Okay, good tip. Now, focus during work time. Distractions are everywhere.
Yeah.
How does Weaver suggest tackling that?
Single tasking. It's key for him. Really dedicating your focus to one important thing at a time. Fighting that urge to check email constantly or glance at social media.
Easier said than done sometimes.
For sure. But he suggests practical things like working in focused bursts. Maybe 45 minutes, totally locked in.
And
Then take a short break, recharge slightly. It acknowledges, our brains aren't built for endless, unwavering focus.
makes sense. And to minimize the actual distractions.
Yeah, like put up a sign, turn off notifications, maybe even move to a quieter spot if you can. Create that bubble of concentration for your most important task.
All right. What about the flip side? Not the big blocks of focus time, but those like little gaps in the day, waiting in line, commuting,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Ah, yes, the 10-15-minute pockets. He actually sees huge potential there. He tells this story
Okay.
about a violinist who wanted to be a writer, and he apparently wrote a significant amount just by using his short train commute every day, bit by bit.
Huh. So those little moments add up.
They really can. The idea is to be prepared, have something ready, an article to read, emails to quickly process, even just planning your next steps. Don't just let that time evaporate.
Okay, interesting perspective. Now, a really big concept he covers is the 80-20 rule,
Yeah.
the Pareto principle. How does that fit into time management?
It's absolutely central for Weaver. So Pareto, this Italian economist, right? He noticed that 80% of the peas in his garden came from about 20% of his pea pods.
Okay, weirdly specific observation.
Huh? Yeah, but then he saw it elsewhere. 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the people.
Ah, the vital few and the trivial many.
Exactly. And Weaver applies this directly to your time and effort. The core idea is, in most things, roughly 80% of your results, your outcomes, will come from only about 20% of your activities or effort.
Yeah. So the challenge is identifying that crucial 20%.
Precisely. Figuring out which tasks, which clients, which projects give you the biggest bang for your buck, time-wise.
And he gives examples, like in business.
Yeah. He suggests looking at your customers. Which 20% bring in 80% of the revenue versus which ones take up 80% of your time but yield little.
And focus on the high-impact ones. Maybe delegate or minimize the others.
That's the implication. Direct your energy where it matters most for your goals.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, this next one's intriguing, creating urgency. He talks about the vacation mentality.
Right. You know how productive you get right before you go on holiday?
Oh, yeah, suddenly you're hyper-efficient.
Exactly, because there's a hard deadline. And he connects this to something called Parkinson's law.
Parkinson's law?
What's that? The idea is that a task will expand in proportion to the amount of time allotted to complete it.
Ah, so if you give yourself a week, it takes a week. Give yourself a day, maybe it takes a day.
Pretty much. So Weaver's practical tip is, when you schedule those tasks we talked about, try having the time you think you need.
Seriously, just cut it in half on the calendar.
Yeah. It creates that artificial urgency, like the vacation deadline. You sort of challenge yourself to beat the clock. You might surprise yourself.
Self-imposed pressure. Good work. Okay, what about the things that actively steal time? The constant distractions.
Yeah, the time wasters. Email, social media are the big culprits usually.
Yeah.
He even quotes Brendan Burchard on email.
What's the quote?
Something like, your email inbox is simply a convenient place for other people to store their own agendas.
Oof, that is home. It's reactive, isn't it? Dealing with everyone else's priorities.
Totally. So Weaver suggests being efficient, quick scan, delete, delegate, do, if quick, or defer, move it to a follow-up system or schedule time for it later. Don't just live in your inbox. And consciously deselect those other time-wasting habits.
Makes sense. It links back to that idea of urgency, doesn't it? Not letting distractions derail you.
Absolutely. He really pushes cultivating a constant sense of urgency, not panic, but a bias for action. He mentions high achievers tend to operate this way.
There's another quote he uses too, right? About wanting success.
Oh, yeah, the Eric Taylor one. You have to want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe.
Intense, but the point is...
The point is making your goals feel vital, so important that you feel compelled to act now, not put things off until some perfect time that, might never actually arrive.
Which naturally brings us to deadlines, the old reliable, he calls them.
Yep. Clear, specific deadlines, maybe even public ones, for accountability. They create that necessary push, that commitment. They fight procrastination.
It all seems to boil down to taking action.
Definitely. He has that blunt phrase, Nike has it wrong, just do it. Now, knowledge isn't enough. Reading about time management isn't enough.
You gotta do it.
You gotta do it. Write the letter, make the call, start the project, whatever it is. That do it now mentality is crucial.
Okay, but maintaining that urgency day after day.
Yeah.
That sounds hard. Does he offer any way to keep that fire lit?
He does. A simple technique. Asking yourself 3 key questions regularly. Daily, perhaps.
What are they?
1, why are these tasks important to me? Connects to your values. 2, what goals will doing this lead to? Keeps the end in sight.
And the third?
3, what's the potential pain or negative consequence of not doing this? Yeah, it's that little bit of away from motivation.
Why is this important? What's the goal? What happens if I don't? Simple but powerful.
Yeah, revisiting those regularly helps keep that internal drive, that urgency alive.
So that's quite a comprehensive look at Weaver's approach. Lots of actionable stuff in there.
Definitely seems grounded in experience. The principle seems solid, but like he says,
It's all about the application.
exactly. The real value comes when you, the listener, actually put these ideas into practice consistently.
Right. Well, here's a final thought, maybe something to chew on.
Mm.
We started with that idea of actual time, your experience of time.
Hmm.
So maybe the goal isn't just managing minutes better, squeezing more in. What if you could fundamentally change how you experience your time?
By really focusing on that high impact 20%, by cultivating that sense of purpose, that urgency.
Yeah. What would that feel like? Maybe worth going back to those time tracking notes with that perspective in mind. What really matters in how you spend those moments?
Deep thought to end on.
Hopefully a useful one.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.